Wolfmaan. Thanks for tuning in. I'm here in beautiful Queenston, Ontario, Canada. Now, as you can hear behind me, it's quite a noisy environment until we slip into those woods. This woods is part of the Bruce Trail Network, which starts right here in Queenston and runs all the way to Tobermory, Ontario. We're going to follow some of this trail and have a look at some of the most unique and unusual features that it offers. Most of it is forgotten pieces of human history which lay along the trail. So come and join me. What we have here is a really unique piece of history along this area. This is a Surveyor's Marker. Although this land surveyor's mark isn't too terribly interesting looking now, when it was new, what it symbolized was this was the edge of your property. So all around us, although right now it's just forest, was once homestead. And these are little tiny things that most people would just step by or step over and not really recognize the history of this area. Now, while the area that I'm hiking in right now is quite forested and grown over, at one time, just a little over 100 years ago, this particular area was nothing like it looks today. It would have been filled with machinery and people and cars and anything else that has to do with heavy industry. The Niagara Parks Commission acquired this property not too long ago, so what they've done is completely let it overgrown and return back to its natural state. One of the things that I love to see about this is to see how powerful nature is. In that a little over 100 years, it's completely regenerated this area and made it into something where now we're going to see deer and chipmunk and all sorts of other small and big animals that love this kind of grassland. Behind me lies a really unique and interesting piece of history in the Niagara region. This tower was manufactured by Fleet Aerospace in the 1950s and placed here along the Niagara Escarpment to test out dew line products. Now, the dew line is a distant early warning system which was in way northern Canada up near the Arctic Circle, and it was designed to detect attacks by the Russians during the Cold War era on the United States and Canada. So what they used to do is they used to attach their brand new towers that were made in Port Colborne and Fort Erie area on the top of this tower and point it down into the valley below. Now, around 9th Line and the Niagara Parkway, they had a similar tower which was a receiving tower, so they could check to make sure they worked before they made the trek north and attached them to help protect our freedom. Everywhere you go in this area, you're going to find pieces of the past, whether it be the distant early warning tower system or this, which just looks like a simple piece of rock. But what you'll notice that's really fascinating about this rock is right here, there's a hole in the rock. And here, you're going to find small depressions. They almost look like little tubes inside this rock. Now, what you'll notice about these little holes is that they were certainly drilled into the rock. What this is a giant chunk of limestone which is actually left over from the mining operations that were here in the 1800s. What they used to do was actually drill into the rock in several spots, and then they would set charges into the rock, and when the charges were set off, would take these big huge pieces of limestone and basically blast them away from the rock surface. It was the most efficient method at the time, and it's still used today. So this is one of the last remaining rail lines of the area. This particular rail line would have been loaded with giant flatbed cars filled with huge pieces of limestone mined from this local quarry. Now, as you can imagine, they would have taken this limestone and they would have used it for buildings around the world, tunnels, all sorts of great projects. Now, these particular kinds of flowers and trees that are growing in this area look very neat and almost like they're arranged in a garden. And the reason is because in the 1800s, people lived where they worked quite often, and this actually was a garden in the area. Now, this stone structure, although it's difficult to see with it being all grown over, is a quarryman's house. Now, in the 1800s, the Queenston Quarries would have built homes on site for their higher ranking employees, for people like foremen and things like that, and they would have been allowed to live here for free while they were under the employ of Queenston Quarries. It's a really fascinating little piece of history that was left behind. This is the Amphitheater, a large depression left over from the mining quarry that was here over 100 years ago. Now nature has decided that it was going to take over this area, and this unique depression allows for all sorts of different rare and unusual species to exist. Things like the sugar maple, American beech, black walnut, and even flowering dogwood will live in this beautiful depression, hidden away from all the high winds of the Niagara Escarpment. The Amphitheater is certainly one of the most fun little areas to visit along this section of the trail. One of the reasons I really enjoy it is because there's an awful lot of little chipmunks that you can hear scurrying around, and they live in the little caves and depressions which run throughout that area. A really fantastic part of this trail is behind me. These are the Queenston Mines. Now these mine shafts, although they look kind of small and they look almost like caves, they were actually man-made. When you enter into these systems, you're going to take a trip back through time, because down there are millions and millions of years of evolution and history as this rock is formed. Now the scene would have looked totally different 120 years ago than it would have today. There would have been equipment and men moving in and out of here, big huge rocks, and even the sounds of construction. It's a really fantastic little place to visit. But we're not going to enter these mines today. We're going to keep going and have a look at the kilns. So what you see here is a set of lime kilns. In 1837, Isaac Usher constructed 6 large, 60-foot deep brick lined kilns on the face of the Niagara Escarpment. Unfortunately today only 5 of these kilns remain. The most westerly one has fallen into complete disrepair. So what these lime kilns were used for was actually creating cement. What they would do is take small pieces or waste pieces of the limestone kiln and break it up into small rocks. They would bake it in these ovens for 24 hours, and then they would ship it either by donkey or by conveyor belt to another location where it would be crushed up into a fine powder. Inside this lime kiln, it's completely different than it is on the outside. As you can hear, it's acoustically different as well. Now these large bricks, which are giant chunks of limestone, weren't originally visible when the kiln was in operation. Originally what it was is a series of bricks. Now if we look way up there, all the way up, we'll actually have a quick look and you can see some of the bricks which are still in existence today. Now they haven't fallen, but over time I'm sure nature will take hold and those bricks are going to come down. Now while I agree that history can be really boring, dusty old books and libraries, when you go out into the woods and you see old structures like these lime kilns behind me, it starts to spark your imagination. You start to say, geez, I wonder what that was. I wonder what it could have been. Who used it? What kind of people used it? When was it built? And it sort of starts to bring history alive. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this area of Queenston, and please consider subscribing to my channel. I'm the Wolfman, and thanks for watching.